Shabbat Shalom. Today will be part 8 to the series Scriptures Often Ignored. And today we're going to be focusing on Job or Iyub chapter 5. And the reason we're going to be focusing on this today is because times are approaching, the end times are here, judgment and everything is even at the door, but so are the devices of the crafty. And we have to remember that we are more powerful than we think we are, and that Yahuwah has given us power to trample over our demons and enemies. So, why am I bringing this up? Because we need to see in Scripture just where He gives us the power and just what He even talks about with our enemies. And if you want, you can also watch some of my other videos on this topic, like Psalms 91 and some other scriptures often ignored, because I think you'll really get a good watch out of them. But today we're going to be focusing on Job or Iyub chapter 5, and we're going to start at verse 8, but we're really going to be focusing today on verses 12 to 22. Those are going to be our central verses. And this is Eliphaz talking to Iyub or Job, because, the plagues have just happened to Job. Because in the first two chapters of Job, we learned that Satan decides to test Job. And remember, see, you have more power than you think you do. Because, see, in order for Satan to do anything, in order for him to even lay a finger on anyone, he first has to go to Yahuwah Elohim. He first has to go to the creator of heaven and earth and ask, can he do what he wants to do? You can read about that also in the book of Jasher chapters 22, 23, and 24, where he goes to Yahuwah in order to test Isaac. But more on that next week, Yahuwah willing, because I do want to do another scriptures often ignored on that. But so, long story short, he goes to Yahuwah to try to test Job, and then we see all the plagues, and of course Job is very, very distraught about what happened. But here he has some of his friends talking to him, and this is what one of his friends tells him. So we're going to start in verse 8. He says, I would seek unto Elohim, and unto Elohim would I commit my cause. Now, if you're new to this channel, you'll see that I don't use the words Lord or God, because I choose to use the set apart names and titles of Hebrew. So that is why, and not paganisms. But verse 9, which doth great things and unsearchable, marvelous things without number, who giveth rain upon the earth and sendeth waters upon the fields, to set up on high those that be low, and those which mourn may be exalted to safety. So what does he do? He sets up high on those that may be low. So if you're feeling low and you're feeling down, don't worry, because with Yahuwah, he will set you on high, as long as you're setting his name on high. Verse 12, this is where I want to go into. Look at this. He disappointeth the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. He taketh the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the froward is carried headlong. They meet with darkness in the daytime, and grope in the noonday as in the night. But he saveth the poor from the sword, from their mouth, and from the hand of the mighty. So I don't know what situation you're in, or where you may be financially, spiritually, emotionally, physically, mentally, and the list goes on. But I'm here to tell you that why you don't need to worry about what your government's doing in FEMA and martial law. Why? Because what does Yahuwah tells us? He says he says he saves the poor. In all scripture in the commandments, they're about helping and giving to the poor. Yahuwah prefers a heart that is, poor financially, but is in all wisdom and seeking him, versus the wise, or who say they're the wise in the crafty counsel, against those who are rich in money and in wealth, but are poor in wisdom. You see, Yahuwah seeks those who are going after him. He seeks those who are following his word. He seeks those who are following his laws, statutes, and commandments, and those who are really seeking after him to have that intimate, personal relationship with him, and those who are doing his word and doing his work. The question is, are you doing his work? The question is, are you seeking him with all your heart? The question is, no matter where you are in your life right now, are you being a witness to him? Are you starting to follow his law, statutes, and commandments? Are you really seeking him with all your heart, soul, and might, just as the commandments command us, according to the book of Deuteronomy chapter 6 and verse 5. So let's keep going. It says, so the poor hath hope, and iniquity stoppeth her mouth. Behold, happy is the man whom Elohim corrected. Therefore despise not thou the chastening of the Almighty. So Elazar is telling Job that, that we are to be happy because Yahuwah Elohim changes us. He corrects us. We are being changed and strengthened in Yahuwah Elohim every single day, and we're not supposed to be sad or upset about that. We're supposed to get joy from that. We're supposed to get joy from Yahuwah really strengthening us and using us for a mighty work. We're supposed to find that joy, find his fruits of the Ruach. And when the Ruach HaKadosh is leading us into his truth, that is where we find peace. That is where we find wisdom. That is where we can find him and know him. But only when we're doing his work and following his Torah, his law, his word, his law, statutes, and commandments can we get to that point. But it says, in verse 18, for he maketh sore and bindeth up, he woundeth, and his hands make whole. He shall deliver thee in 6 troubles, yea, in 7 there shall no evil touch thee. In famine he shall redeem thee from death, and in war from the power of the sword. Thou shalt be hid from the scourge of the tongue, neither shalt thou be afraid of destruction when it cometh. At destruction and famine thou shalt laugh, neither shalt thou be afraid of the beasts of the earth. And you can say that this definitely relates to end times. But why am I going over this today? I'm going over this today because, there are many of us who are saying, well, maybe we should do this, maybe we should do that, maybe we should prepare this way, maybe we should prepare that way. But I'm here to tell you, if your heart is in the right place, if you're preparing your heart and changing your heart and seeking Yahuwah and renewing your heart and your mind, that is where you will find your protection. Because remember, it says, remember, who is in control? See, sometimes we get so caught up into the world and the world's way of thinking. That is why we have to be made separate. That is why Yahuwah tells us to be ye separate. Because what is the world focused on? The world is too busy focused on what Satan's doing. The world's too busy focused on, fearing Satan and being afraid of Satan and the Jewish Zionists and the synagogues of Satan and their works. But what does Scripture tell us? Scripture tells us that who is in control here? Because Yahuwah Elohim is in control. Not Satan, not the Jewish Zionists, not the police, not the satanic government. No, they have no power when it comes to Yahuwah Elohim. And if you are under Yahuwah Elohim's shield and buckler, if you are in his shadow, if you are under him, well then guess what? Nothing can come upon you. No death and disease and famine can come upon you if you are constantly seeking Yahuwah, following his law, statutes, and commandments, have accepted his true son, Yahusha, your Passover lamb, so that all may be well with you, so that when things do start to happen, well, guess what? You're protected from it. He will lead you to that wilderness. He will lead you into his place of protection. But in order for him to do that, you have to accept him, come to him as a child, really renew your spirit and renew your mind, just renew your faith with him, your walk with him, have that personal relationship, and really communicate with him on a personal level, because that's where prayer will really arise. But to do that, you have to be made separate. You cannot be like the rest of the world. If you expect to have that relationship with Yahuwah, but yet you're still smoking and drinking and doing all the things of the world, then you're not going to be able to find that relationship. Because remember, Yahuwah is separate. He is set apart for a reason. He's not like the rest of the world. So therefore, if we want to develop that relationship with him through prayer and praise, we can't be like the rest of the world either. We too have to be set apart so that way he can redeem us from death, war, poverty, the sword, destruction, famine, and everything else that the world is going to be afraid of. See, the world's going to be afraid of it, but when you have Yahuwah on your side, you don't have to fear, because he tells us not to fear. But that's only when you have the Ruach HaKadosh leading you and guiding you, and you have Yahuwah's true word, and you're following his true word, which are the laws, statutes, and commandments highlighted in the first 5 books of the Bible. Now, people still ask me and question me, well, is this a religion? Is this a type of religion? And I tell them, no, following the law, statutes, and commandments, it's not legalistic. It's not a religion. It is the truth. It's Yahuwah's word. And just like John chapter 1 verses 1 says, the word is Elohim. So therefore, his word is true, and we know his word is true. So following it does not make you any type of religion. It does not make you any type of denomination. You are, in fact, of truth, of righteousness. And that is what we need to remember and keep in mind. And like I said, people ask me, well, what religion are you? What do you believe in? I tell people, I do not identify as a religion. This is not a religion. This is following the truth. This is following Yahuwah. This is following his law, statutes, and commandments. Now, ethnically speaking, I am a Hebrew because I'm in fact so-called African American, but I'm not African. I'm actually a Hebrew. And then Israelite. Well, Israelite means that you are not only are you a child of Yahukob or Jacob, but you also follow the law, statutes, and commandments, because we tend to forget that Israelites back then, if they did not follow the law, statutes, and commandments, they were cut off from Israel, as in they were no longer part of the house of Yashraal if they sinned and committed transgressions against the law. Well, the same thing stands today for people who, say that they're Hebrew Israelites. Well, if you're not following law, statutes, and commandments, well, then you're not an Israelite, because you are cut off. That's why following the law is so important, and that's why seeking him is so important, because through him is where we find that strength. Through him is where we find wisdom, and through him is where we find protection, and we need to get equipped with his protection. You can watch some of my other videos on this topic for more as well, but hopefully this will help you on your spiritual walk and journey into truth. And hopefully these scriptures often ignored versions are helping you, and really helping you seek and have that personal relationship with your creator Yahuwah. Because just like I've said, he wants to have that personal relationship with you, but in order for him to come upon you, in order for his set-apart Ruach or Ruach HaKadosh to come upon you, what do you have to do? You have to cleanse your temple, follow his law, statutes, and commandments, and really start seeking him on that personal, intimate relationship, because through there is where you find the truth. And remember, to be ye separate, be set apart. So remember the abominable foods that are talked about in Leviticus chapter 11 and Deuteronomy chapter 14 and even Isaiah 66. Know this stuff and start to do it. Remember, don't just be hearers of the word, but also be ye doers. And that is something we're all striving to do, myself included. But hopefully this has been helpful to you. This is Truth Unveiled here. Shalom.